Hello, I'm back. And now it's time to talk about something that's important and you should know. Profit, the difference between profit versus revenue, and a practical application of these things in the video game industry. So, I've been hearing a lot of stuff in the gamosphere where people are like, well, you know, you're just hating on Microsoft or Sony saying that they aren't making a profit. And I'll explain that after the cut. A practical application of profit versus revenue and the differences thereof. Now, after the cut. Okay, first, before we get started, let's talk about the definitions. Now, I'm not going to give you the book definition because it's a little complicated. I'm just going to give you a layman's terms, okay? Revenue is all the money you bring in with your financial endeavors. So, I'm going to use a real world example, okay? If it takes $200,000 for me to run my 2 locations, okay? $200,000, and that means for operating costs. That includes paying my employees, the bill for my supplies, for food and drink, keeping the lights on, internet, high-speed internet, cable, FiOS, whatever. Toiletries, napkins, toilet paper, all that type of stuff. Those are my operating costs. I have to make at least $200,000 in revenue just to break even. Alright? So, that means that everything above, like if I only bring in $200,000 worth of revenue in a year, I've only broken even that year. I'm in business, I don't owe any money, but I didn't make any profit. Now, profit is everything above what you need in revenue after you've paid everyone, taken care of your business expenses, everything else. Now, that is the technical term, that is the strictest definition of it. I take it a bit further in saying profit is what you get after you've reinvested into your business, paid yourself. Everything above that is profit, and normally that's not a lot if you are running a business well, because you reinvest 60% of your profit should be reinvested in your business. Yeah. Yeah, 60% of your profit should be reinvested in your business, which is amazing. So that's just a layman's term definition. So keep that in mind when I talk about the next section of this video. After the cut. So here we are yet again. So let's use a practical application in regards to the video game medium. Microsoft and Sony. We're going to use those two because I was accused of being a hater of Microsoft and Sony, even though I had facts to back up what I said. Excuse me. So let's look at it like this. Microsoft's Xbox division. Microsoft themselves make lots of money off of the software division because despite what people may say about Microsoft and their stranglehold on the software OS market, every time you buy a piece of electronics with Windows on it, you're paying for Windows, the OS system. Every time. So basically, when you do that, you are essentially giving Microsoft money. That's right. That's revenue. That's a revenue stream. That is Microsoft's primary revenue stream, as a matter of fact. And even though Microsoft Windows might not be as ubiquitous as it was 10, 15 years ago, it's still 85% of the electronics sold have to have Windows on them if you want to get access to the full gamut of certain other softwares. Sad but true. That is Microsoft's primary revenue stream. Now, the Xbox division is a little bit different because the Xbox division, first of all, they spent, I want to say, $10 billion getting it off the ground, supporting it when it first came out, 16, 17 years ago. Then they spent a lot of money hatting exclusives, buying studios up, stuff like that. Rare, Bungie, stuff like that. Now, here's the kicker. The first-party games, aside from Halo, don't really sell all that well on Microsoft systems. So the people who are making money off of Microsoft games, games that sell on those systems, are third parties. Call of Duty has been the highest-selling game on that system for the last few years now. And Microsoft basically paid for all of those Call of Duties to get advertised, pushed. They had exclusivity agreements with Activision in order to have, the special Modern Warfare 2 bundle, Xbox 360, yeah! That's not cheap. I saw a Halo 5 advertisement at a movie theater. And I'm pretty sure if it's in one movie theater, it's in chains of movie theaters. That's not cheap. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that Microsoft spent to advertise that. That's money going out the window. Now, about the Xbox itself. The original Xbox didn't make money for the first 3 years it was out. Only, as a matter of fact, I don't think it was ever really profitable. The Xbox 360 didn't make money until it was about 4 years old because they finally got it cheap enough to actually turn a profit off of the system itself. But you also have to keep in mind that they had the Red Ring of Death fiasco where they had to spend billions in order to replace Xbox 360s because it was shoddily made originally. Then let's keep in mind that on top of all of that, we also had the Xbox One fiasco, which, I mean, okay, let's break this down. The Xbox One, let's say, I'm going to give you a modest, was being sold at a moderate loss when it first came out. So let's say $550. Let's say it took $550 to make one Xbox One unit. And they were selling it for $500. They were taking a $50 loss, but you're Microsoft, that's a loss that you can kind of take. But they were going to make it up by selling the ad data that they got with their always online DRM, checking what you looked at, how long you looked at it, and they were going to sell that ad data to third parties and make up the $50 and make a nice little profit in return. I mean, it's bullshit, but I mean, that's a pretty smart idea. Now, the awkward portion of it all is that basically that didn't work out the way they wanted it to because they had to do a price cut by dropping the Kinect. Now here's the thing. When they dropped the Kinect on the Xbox One, they didn't make a brand new Xbox One. They just went to the ones in the factory and took the Kinect 2.0 off of it. Now here's the kicker. They haven't made a new Xbox One. These Xbox Ones are still being made as if they are Kinect capable. Because of this, they're still spending $550 to make it. But they've just cut the price from $500 to $399. So that's $150 in the hole. So, the Xbox One still can't really pick up any steam. So then they do a temporary price cut. Starting Black Friday, $50. So it goes from $399 to $349. So they're $200 in the hole per console sold. Their first-party games aren't selling very well, which means their first-party games are what make you the money in the console manufacturer business. Your first-party games make you money because there's no one else that you there's no one else getting the benefits from what you put into it. You get all the benefit of it. It's kind of like when you own your own business, Aside from paying your operating costs, everything above that, once you reinvest, is your money. But I digress. So basically, Microsoft takes this money, and they're $200 in the hole with the Xbox One at this point. But then you have to realize something else. The Xbox One uses Blu-ray technology, which basically means that for every console sold, they have a licensing fee, so they have to pay LG and Sony, the two companies that own the right to Blu-ray technology, a cut, a royalty, if you will, for every console sold. So let's say they sold 2 million Xbox Ones over a quarter. They have to give $25 for every one thing sold. 25, 30 to LG and Sony, like split down the middle, okay? So, for all intensive purposes, Microsoft has a console that takes them $550 to make, that they're selling at a $200 and $25 to $30 loss on top of. Okay? Think about that shit. Okay? So, like, you're just digging yourself in a hole deeper. Their first party games are not selling all that well. Okay? A lot of issues and things like that. So, yeah, the Xbox division is not making a lot of money. Now, when you look at the on the papers about how much money the Xbox division made, they'll say, "Well, we made this much revenue with Android royalties." Here's the problem with that statement. Revenue is how much money you bring in. It's not the profit that you made. Revenue is just how much money you brought in, not how much profit you made. So, that's like me saying, okay, it takes $200,000 for me to run everything in my two establishments. I hope to have the second one to be a bit less smaller, but more modern. So, I have to make at least $200,000 in revenue to keep everything running. Big deal. That's not hard to do where I am. What people don't understand is that profit and revenue, like I said, are two different things. They report Android royalties as revenue, but that doesn't count the billions of dollars they're losing on the Xbox division, with very little, if any, profit being made on the hardware or the software. Believe me, Phil Spencer, I mean, and here's the thing, okay? Steve Ballmer was the progenitor of a lot of the Xbox's policies when they first came out. You know, paying off developers, just buying into shit. The problem is that the new CEO of Microsoft is not Steve Ballmer, it's Nadal. And Nadal, I mean, you cannot go to a board of directors who hold the real power in a company. The CEO is just the guidance. The board of directors are the dudes you really have to appease in a lot of cases. You can't go to a board of directors and say, "Oh yeah, we have a division that's losing billions of dollars. Give me another blank check so I can keep them afloat." What are you, fucking stupid? So, get that out of your head. When Microsoft reports the Xbox division made them money, take it with a heaping teaspoon of salt. And speaking of salt, let's get to the next half of this equation, Sony after the cut. So, this brings us to Sony. Let's talk about Sony. Now, Sony's business model is a little bit different from Microsoft, in that Microsoft wanted to get the brand loyalty, and wanted to sell you their OS. And considering at least on the PC side, Microsoft's, even though it's decreased over the years, Microsoft's OS is ubiquitous. It's fucking everywhere. or damn near everywhere. I mean, it's still kind of odd when I see people, oh, I use Linux, I use Penguin, I use Ubuntu. Good for you. I mean, how's it going where you can only use like 30% of the applications that everyone else takes for granted on Windows? I mean, I don't love Windows, but that's just how it is. But we're not talking about Windows, we're talking about Sony. And this is a very simple equation, okay? Profit versus revenue. Sony, for the longest time, especially with for the longest time, even before the PS1 era, before they ever got into video games, Sony pushes formats. That's their thing, okay? They tried back in the day with VHS versus Sony's Betamax. VHS, Philips's VHS versus Sony's Betamax. Now, here's the thing. Betamax had better audio-visual quality. It was actually a better product. Unfortunately, it only could have not a half of the film on one side and the other half on the B side of the Betamax cassette tape, and the Betamax failed miserably. The only place where the Betamax really took off was in a lot of island nations where VHS didn't take off because humidity messed up a VCR cassette player. That being said, everywhere else in Europe, America, Canada, the big markets for VCRs, VCR took off. And VCR was cheaper, it was ubiquitous, and it kicked the Betamax's fucking ass. But the reason I tell you this is because Sony has made some mistakes pushing formats. But they've also had wins. During the PS1, that really helped push the CD format. And also the CD Walkman, all that type of stuff. PS2 DVDs and HD DVDs pushed the shit out of that. But then they stepped into a pile of dog shit with the PS3. Not that the PS3 was a dog shit. It's a pretty good console. No. The format they wanted to push was Blu-ray. And they created a console that cost $800 for them to manufacture, and they sold it at $600. And it was bombing. Now, then they cut the price by like 150, eventually like 50, then 100, and then 150. Eventually, the PS3 was cut down almost $200 to $399. Here's the problem. And here's where you need to pay attention to profit versus revenue. They were losing, over the course of the PS3's life cycle, they lost $4.7 to $6 billion on the PS3 alone. Now here's what you have to also keep in mind. That's just the PS3 division. Sony had other divisions where they were losing market share, but still paying people. So they were going into debt in order to maintain operating costs. Okay? So Sony went into debt, maintaining operating costs, while their revenue went down. You understand what I'm saying? So basically, you're talking 15, 20 years of your revenue going down, your operating costs either staying the same or going up because technology was changing and new shit was coming out and that was more expensive and they were getting it. I mean, they were losing tons of money. Now, let's keep in mind this little simple fact. Sony also was taking out loans from various banks around Japan and taking government loans from the Japanese government that were low-interest Japanese loans. But here's the thing. Sony, or any business for that matter, even if you use defrayed cost loans, you still have to pay something towards the loan. So basically, you're talking, Sony has billions of dollars in loans, in debt that they owe all types of banks around Japan, maybe even other countries even, combined with divisions that have consistently lost billions across the 12, 13, 14 divisions Sony has. I know they've sold some of them, but at one point they had 17 divisions. I think they've sold like 4 of them, so that's still double digits divisions. That is a lot of fucking money. And here's the thing. debt counts when you're talking about revenue, because here's the thing. If it takes $200,000 to run your business, but you also have $500,000 in loans, and you have to pay at least $50,000 every month on those loans, or every year on those loans, basically that's $250,000 of revenue you have to bring in. If you only brought in $200,000, you still have that huge mountain of debt hanging over you. So Sony has, let's say $13, $14, $15 billion in debt. They lost a lot of their market share. They went from 60 billion to 30 billion. They have $15 billion in debt to various banks, the Japanese government, and whomever. Plus, their revenue has been going down while the cost of business has been going up. Sure, they've fired some people, shuttered some studios, and sold some buildings, but I mean, that's still a lot of money. So even if they said, we made $1 million this quarter, we made $200 million this year, you have a fuck ton of debt to pay off, motherfucker. You are fucked. Keep that in mind the next time someone comes up to you and says, Sony will be fine. No, not really. No. A lot of people are going to have to get fired. You're going to see more divisions get either rolled up into others or sold off. And I'm sad for those people, but Sony made these dumbass decisions. They got to pay. They got to pay for them. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, the conclusion is after the cut. All right, it's time for us to move on to the conclusion, and the conclusion is very simple. Profit versus revenue are two completely different things. When you hear a financial report, if they just tell you how much revenue they brought in, start to get a little bit suspicious, because revenue is like units shipped. That doesn't tell you how much profit they made. That doesn't tell you operating costs, investment costs, future investment, past investment returns. It doesn't tell you anything. That being said, this is just the financial aspect of the video game industry. This doesn't mean, if a company's console is struggling financially, if their console division is struggling financially, that doesn't really bother me. I don't care. But if you enjoy your games on that system, damn it, enjoy your games on that system. But don't misconstrue your enjoyment of a system with it being financially viable. Don't do that, because it comes across as out of touch. And no one wants to be out of touch. So, now that we've gotten that out the way, if you have any questions, leave them. Yeah. Our next bit of stuff is, I have a video coming out either today or tomorrow about the Nintendo curse. Is it real? And after we get through with that, excuse me, also be prepared to leave your questions, comments, and ideas for the Nintendo, the podcast I'll be doing Saturday, which will be based around what Sony is going to do at this year's E3. The week after that Saturday, we'll be doing third parties, and the week after that, we'll be doing Nintendo. So leave questions at here, and we'll see. We'll just wild estimations about what they'll do. We'll also try to answer your guys' questions. This will be in Google Hangouts, so you can also use the Google app to ask questions as well. So look forward to that. Enjoy. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, leave them in the comments section. And if you disagree, tell me why you disagree. Please present some evidence that comes from a reputable source. And we might have a dialogue about it. Keep it civil, and good day.